Welcome back to another week of meals from the pantry. So it's day 6, I believe. It's Monday. Sunday we had steak tacos. We took a flank steak from the beef freezer. We made homemade tortillas, and I do have that video uploaded. So if you've not seen it yet, go ahead and check it out. Especially during a pantry challenge, making your own homemade tortillas is, probably very helpful for some people. You're either not going to the grocery store or you have a budget on yourself, and if you make your own tortillas with the items you have at home, probably, you could save yourself some money and still eat really well. So that's what we did yesterday. The peppers, of course, were from my freezer. Those were grown in my garden. And today, Monday, we are having soup. I am making a brand new soup that I've never made before. I've actually never even eaten it before, but given the dynamic of the flavors going on in here, I'm certain I will probably enjoy it. I live in Ohio, and it's been very snowy here. We are pretty north, so Winter Storm Blair did not wreak havoc on us like it has for some of my southern friends. I'm a little bit, I would say, more closer to the lake, so when we get lake effect issues going on, that's kind of when we get hit. So it was snowy enough that the schools called off though, so that calls for a soup day if I ever heard of one. So Thai noodle soup is what I'm making today. Let's go over the list of ingredients because there's a lot of ingredients, and I actually added a few. When I start a new recipe, I like to read the reviews if there are any. And there were a lot of people saying pretty much the same thing. So let's go over the ingredients and get to making some soup to warm up for the night. Some items I've decided to add myself. I like to read reviews when possible, and a lot of the reviews pretty much all said the same thing. If you're a spice lover anyhow, which I do love things spicy, they opted to add more spice to it. Also, most common when you're making a dish, it calls for fresh ingredients, which I don't have in my house. So I want to really amplify my flavor due to the lack of having certain fresh ingredients. So we are going to add a couple of my freeze-dried chilies that I grew in the garden. These were serranos, I believe. I have freeze-dried leeks. I actually just add these to soups for no other reason than I like them. I won't do a whole ton, but I will add a little bit in there. So I have those. That was added to the recipe. I'm going to be using dehydrated carrots because I don't have fresh carrots and I don't have frozen. So I'll use these. Some of the suggestions was to add mushrooms. Again, don't have fresh, but I have 2 different versions of a dried. I have an open bag somewhere in the pantry of shiitake. And then there's these ones, I don't know if it's pronounced correctly, but chanterelle, I'm not sure. But I think I'm gonna try these ones this time. I'm going to use some of my freezer bell peppers. It called for red. I just am grabbing what I have. Onions, of course, which I will use my freezer onions in this case. Chicken stock. You could use vegetable if you want to make this vegetarian. Coconut cream milk. Curry powder. Curry paste, rather. Some garlic. And then it calls for fish sauce, which I don't have. I think I come across 1 or 2 recipes a year that calls for fish sauce. It's not something I use often enough to purchase it. I don't know if it's something that goes bad. I have cooked with it before, and I know it stinks to high heaven, so I don't know that I would know if it went bad to begin with. So I'm just using soy sauce or liquid aminos is what they suggest as a substitute. I'm adding some of the Italian Bomba hot pepper sauce that I get from Trader Joe's. I've discussed this several times in other videos. There's not a whole lot in here, so that is going to add, I'm hoping, the spice that I'm looking for in this soup. I have some limes that really need to be used up from the holidays. I've been adding a ton of these to water, so this is going to be for our serving bowls. And then I have fresh lime juice. Well, it's not necessarily fresh, but it tastes fresh, that I keep in the fridge. I'll add that to the pot. Stir fry rice noodles. It's not the noodles that shows in this particular recipe, but I've seen many different recipes using all different types of noodles, so I'm going to give this one a try. Brown sugar. The suggestions, many actually suggested to add more brown sugar. A lot of them said that they added more than what was called for, and I'm using the store-bought brown sugar because they just have such a little bit left that I figure whenever I need brown sugar and stuff, I'll just resort to that first. And then chicken breast, which of course you can omit if you're making it vegetarian. So that's the rundown of ingredients. What I'm going to do first is get a head start on my dehydrated items. This particular soup in itself does not cook for a very long time. I think once you get everything together, it simmers for maybe 20 minutes. Plus the time then once you add your noodles for that to cook. If I were making like a minestrone soup or something, I could put everything into the pot dehydrated because I would simmer it for a good hour most likely, or all day if it was in the slow cooker. That's not the case here, so I'm going to give a little head start to just make sure that they're not only hydrated, but that they can actually then taste as though they've been cooked. So my carrots and my mushrooms, I'm going to give a head start. I'm going to let those sit in some water for probably 15 minutes before I actually start making everything. I'll let my chilies soak for maybe just 5 minutes before I then put them into the soup. So that's the first step. We're gonna start by sauteing up this chicken. I did dice the chicken into bite-sized pieces. Had I read the reviews before, like an hour ago, a lot of people suggested using shredded chicken, and I could see how that would be more enjoyable. So next time I will save my chicken from the freezer, and I will use my canned chicken because that will shred up just beautifully in anything. This time I opted to use fresh chicken because I'm actually going to reserve some of it for some lunches this week. Okay, I'm gonna put the chicken in. Okay, chicken is done. I'm going to add in the onions. I'm going to add about half of this bag of peppers. So my peppers and onions are frozen, so I'm going to let this simmer for a while to get most of the liquid that comes off of it. I want that evaporated before we move to the next step. I microplaned my garlic. 3 cloves. Add as much or as little as you like. I'm going to get that in. We'll get that kind of, you know, toasted up just for a minute or so. What I like to do is open all my cans, all my jars, so this way as we get moving along, it's all ready for me. I do that whether I'm filming something or not. I mean, it does definitely help in this scenario, but I do it whenever I cook at any time. My goodness, you see that steam? Whew. Going to add, the recipe called for 3 tablespoons of your curry paste. I just eyeball. It also, I forgot to tell you, has you adding basil. Thai basil would be phenomenal, but I don't have that, so I'm just going to do a little bit of regular dried basil. I'm going to add the carrots. Throw the mushrooms in. This is where I'm going to add the brown sugar. Fish sauce or soy sauce. A little bit of lime juice. Chicken stock. 4 cups, plus I'm gonna fill this about halfway with water and get that added. I'm gonna throw my leeks in here. Turn down the heat as well so it can start to simmer. I don't really want it to boil at this point. Just simmer. Get a couple of these chilies in there. You know what I forgot? My pepper blend. It's just about 2 teaspoons left. Okay, let's get the chicken back in there. I think I'm going to add more water. When you're working with freeze-dried and dehydrated foods, they're going to absorb your water, liquid, whatever it is you're working with. And I need to cook my noodles here in this pot. So let me show you kind of what I'm working with so far. When you put freeze-dried or dehydrated foods in before they are fully hydrated, they're going to float at the top. That's no big deal. That's normal. Okay, so that's looking really good. We have our coconut milk still to add. Really starting to change the color some. Let's see if I turn this off. You might be able to see it better. Everything you see, kind of those speckles floating on top, that's the chili blend from Trader Joe's. Okay, I'm gonna let this simmer for a little bit. I'm gonna taste test it before we add our noodles and see if we need to make any adjustments anywhere. Last step is to add your noodles. These are rice noodles, so they're not going to take but maybe 4 to 6 minutes to cook. I don't have it on a high boil because they're not like traditional noodles. And I'm only doing half of the box because the recipe calls for 4 ounces. This is 14. Give or take a little bit will be fine.
Smells really good too.
Yeah, it does. I let the noodles cook about 5 minutes and then I just cut the heat. The residual heat from the burner will continue cooking. And then as it sits and rests in the pot, your noodles will finish cooking that way. So I am currently waiting on some naan bread. I have a video on making the sourdough naan bread, and then we had leftovers. I put them in the freezer. Some of you had told me that they freeze wonderfully, so I have them warming in some tin foil, aluminum foil, in the oven, and then once those are warmed through, we'll dish up. This soup was really fantastic. I would probably put in a little less noodles next time because they do swell, they absorb some of the liquid, and that's okay. I mean, we actually really enjoyed it the way it was, but if you like a very brothy style soup, then definitely go a little less on the noodles. So other than that, it was also a little spicy, but that's adjustable. When you're cooking, you put in the amount of heat that you think you can handle. This was incredibly tasty. We will be making this again. It was very easy and it came together quickly. My time that I found spending in this dish was just getting my onions and peppers to cook off a lot of that liquid. When you pull, from the freezer, you tend to have a lot of liquid that needs to be cooked off. Otherwise, it was really, really quick, easy, super flavorful, and you don't need fresh ingredients to make a really tasty meal. Day 7 of our pantry challenge. I am in the freezer taking out a couple things. The first is a mixture of cookies from Christmas. I pretty much froze them right away. We had several other desserts we needed to eat through first. I've got a lot more cookies there in my freezer, and so every so many days, a week or so will go by, I'll just come in, grab a little variation, so when we get a little sweet tooth, we've got some cookies. This is a good tip for people who are just starting the pantry challenge this year, or maybe you're just sort of watching from the sidelines and you might participate next year. I've had someone already comment, but I've heard this several times. Oh, I could never do the pantry challenge because my kids, I think, would go crazy. And I am here to say, I hear ya, because if this pantry challenge happened over summer, my kids would have no part of it. They would riot, as somebody said down in the comments. And it's because there's no snack foods or this, that, the other, right? Well, if you're doing Christmas cookies at Christmas time, freeze them and just go and take out a small plate of them from time to time. They could pack it in their lunches, they could have it as a dessert, and then you're not buying Chips Ahoy's or Oreos or something from the grocery store. So that is sort of taken care of. So it's definitely doable. Now, that doesn't solve the problem across the board with maybe why children don't want us going through a pantry challenge. I hear ya, but I just wanted to give that little suggestion to you. I took out hamburger buns and rye bread. We're having hamburgers for dinner tonight. Well, my husband and my nephew are having hamburgers for dinner. I'm going to have leftover steak fajitas. I won't be here at dinner time. I'm not filming dinner. It's just hamburgers anyway. But I will be home a little late, and so I'll just do the leftovers. He's frying up some potatoes for French fries, and they're not going to be fresh by the time I get home. So I opted for a different dinner. This is a second suggestion I'll give you. I know tomorrow's dinner my nephew's not going to like. So when I'm menu planning, I will purposefully menu plan a meal where I can have leftovers that my nephew enjoys, and then I can make a meal that other people enjoy. So my nephew's very picky. We probably all have at least one of them in our household, and almost since birth he's been picky about the food that he eats, so it's fine. We've managed for 14 years to work around it. I have rye bread because tomorrow is the corned beef sandwiches. I'm thawing this now so that way tonight I can slice into it to determine whether or not this is going to be any good. I want my bread to be a certain way when I'm trying to use it as a sandwich. If it's too dense inside, I'm not going to enjoy it as a sandwich, and I'll have to do plan B for my dinner, which will be just a corned beef hash for dinner. I have potatoes that I've preserved in my freezer. Just little hash brown type of potatoes. I roasted these. You want to cook potatoes partially, if not all the way, before freezing them, or it does not work out very well. So if I have to do a hash style dinner, then you know, that's okay. So that's pretty much all I'm gonna do here today. Thank you for everyone who's commenting down in the show notes. No, it's not show notes. That's what I comment in. You're commenting in the comment area. Thank you for everyone for engaging with me, because I absolutely love the back and forth. I like having conversations. I like to talk a lot. So I like hearing what you're doing, what your goals are, what your rules are, if it's your first year, if you're sort of just watching people to see what they're doing, or if you've, like me, done it for several years. I just enjoy hearing from you. So thank you so much for engaging with my videos, and I'll meet you back here in the kitchen tomorrow for dinner. All right, it's a matter of truth. I figure you and I made this bread together. We're going to cut it together. So I did not slice it this morning because today was a day I had to be up at 4 in the morning, and I don't think anyone wants to hear my bread slicer at 5 in the morning. So figured I'd wait and do it with you. We can either cry together or celebrate together. We shall see. I will tell you right off the bat, it feels pretty heavy. You know, there's a lot of reasons this bread gave me doubt. We're gonna see. I'm going to get it sliced up, and we'll see if I have to use my plan B or not. You see all of those perfect cuts? So, not terrible. Not exactly as good of an outcome as I would want it either. You know, I think we'll try it. I think, you know, I'm finding my words right now. It almost feels like it could have been cooked a little longer. So I honestly think that's where most of the problem lies. So I'll make sandwiches from it today. We'll see how we like it. Worst case scenario, you take everything off of the sandwich and just eat it that way. Maybe I'll do fried potatoes on the side anyhow, as our side dish, so that will work out wonderful. Let's go make dinner. Dinner was really easy tonight. I started by sauteing some of the onions and peppers that I had in my freezer. I just wanted to get some of that liquid initially that comes off of it. Just wanted to get that out, and then I added lard, added my potatoes, and then I just pretty much forgot about it. I let it fry up. I went on to making homemade Thousand Island dressing. It's really simple. It's just some, and as you can see, I don't measure. It's just some ketchup, mayonnaise, dehydrated onions, paprika, relish, salt, pepper, Worcestershire sauce, and that's it. I don't have relish in the house, so I just take my pickles and I just chop it up. I actually stopped making relish 2 years ago because we hardly use it as relish, and so I figured the small number of times I need relish, I'll just cut it up myself. No big deal. Gave it a mix, and that was it. I don't have any homemade sauerkraut on hand, so I'm using the sauerkraut that I've gotten from Azure Standard. That was a spicy blend, and it was absolutely amazing. Next up is just fry up the corned beef. You want to get it really hot. It shreds apart phenomenally. So I just shred it and just let it cook until desired crispness. I absolutely love this Italian Bomba hot pepper sauce. So I opened a new jar. Every time I make either a Cuban sandwich or the corned beef sandwich, I put a little bit of this on here. The rye bread, I will tell you right now, actually turned out really, really well. My husband and I both agree it isn't our favorite recipe, so I don't know that I'm actually going to try and attempt this recipe again. Usually I like to give recipes another try if it doesn't come out right the first time, but I think I'm going to continue on my journey of trying to find my original rye bread recipe. I just from here move on to assembling the sandwiches. You can do whatever you like in whatever order you have. I did have a few slices of Swiss cheese still in my crisper from from I think sometime in November. I don't remember for sure when, but we did sub sandwiches. So I was using up some of that Swiss cheese, and that was our dinner tonight, and the last couple of nights you saw what our dinner was. So please check back on what we're going to be having for dinner the rest of this week, and I will see you next time I'm in my kitchen. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing my videos. Take care.